Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation will come to order. I thank the ranking member, Senator Blackburn, for being here, and especially want to express my gratitude to the chairman of the committee, Senator Cantwell, who has encouraged and supported this effort, and to the ranking member, Senator Wicker, who is also with us and who has helped to lead. This effort has been very, very bipartisan, and I think the ongoing series of hearings that we will have similarly will be bipartisan in its objective and its conduct. I want to welcome our witness, Ms. Davis, who is appearing on behalf of Facebook. Thank you for being with us. This hearing is the third in a series intended to help us draft legislation, but not just educate, not just legislate, but also to prompt action by Facebook itself. And that action has to address the harms that children and teens face on social media. I want to make clear that our interests are not limited to Facebook and Instagram. Our subcommittee has secured commitments from several social media companies to appear in the coming weeks. We will hold them to those promises. We're here today because Facebook has shown us, once again, that it is incapable of holding itself accountable. This month, a whistleblower approached my office to provide information about Facebook and Instagram. Thanks to documents provided by that whistleblower, as well as extensive public reporting by the Wall Street Journal and others, we now have deep insight into Facebook's relentless campaign to recruit and exploit young users. We now know, while Facebook publicly denies that Instagram is deeply harmful for teens, privately, Facebook researchers and experts have been ringing the alarm for years. We now know that Facebook routinely puts profits ahead of kids' online safety. We know it chooses the growth of its products over the well-being of our children, and we now know that it is indefensibly delinquent in acting to protect them. It is failing to hold itself accountable, and the question that haunts me is, how can we or parents or anyone trust Facebook? Facebook last night disclosed 2 reports. We have those 2 reports among the documents that the whistleblower has provided. There are numerous other extensive and sophisticated reports that Facebook has not disclosed. Why? That will be a question that I think will resonate throughout this hearing, because the fact of the matter is Facebook has concealed research, studies, experts that show the harm that has been caused to children on its site, how it knew about that harm, and how it concealed it continually. In August, ahead of this hearing, Senator Blackburn and I wrote to Mark Zuckerberg, and we asked, as you can see from this poster board, quote, has Facebook research ever found that its platforms and products can have a negative effect on children's and teens' mental health or well-being, such as increased suicidal thoughts, heightened anxiety, unhealthy usage patterns, negative self-image, or other indications of lower well-being, end quote. Facebook's response was, quote, we are not aware of a consensus among studies or experts about how much screen time is too much. That response was simply untrue. Facebook knows. It knows the evidence of harm to teens is substantial and specific to Instagram. In new, previously undisclosed documents provided by the whistleblower. We're making them available now through these quotes. We know that its own comprehensive internal review indicated that Facebook employees found, and I quote, substantial evidence suggests that experiences on Instagram and Facebook make body dissatisfaction worse, particularly viewing attractive images of others, viewing filtered images, posting selfies, and viewing content with certain hashtags. I'm going to repeat that quote. Substantial evidence suggests that experiences on Instagram and Facebook make body dissatisfaction worse, particularly viewing attractive images of others, viewing filtered images, posting selfies, and viewing content with certain hashtags. That finding was not some disgruntled Facebook employee making a complaint. It was Facebook's own employees making a formal finding based on their research. And it was available at the highest levels of Facebook's management. In our August letter, we also asked, quote, has Facebook ever found that child or teenage users engage in usage patterns that would indicate addictive or unhealthy usage of its platforms or products? End quote. Facebook didn't even bother to respond directly and pointed us to a previous evasion. And there was a reason it responded in that way, because Facebook knows, they know that children struggle with addiction on Instagram, and they didn't want to admit it. Facebook researchers have concluded that teens, quote, have an addict's narrative about their use. Have an addict's narrative about their use. Another survey, also not disclosed publicly, found that, quote, over 1/3 of teens felt they have, quote, only a little control or no control at all over how Instagram makes them feel. Again, this conclusion is not solely one report, one Facebook employee's perspective. It is a pattern of findings repeated across sophisticated and extensive studies that Facebook itself conducted over the past 4 years, not displeased or disgruntled employees. Facebook formal findings and conclusion. Facebook knows the destructive consequences that Instagram's design and algorithms are having on our young people and our society, but it has routinely prioritized its own rapid growth over basic safety for our children. There is a teenage mental health crisis in America. After years of decline, starting in 2007, the suicide rate for young people has begun to skyrocket. The suicide rate for 10 to 14-year-olds has doubled. For young girls, it has quadrupled. Instagram didn't create this crisis, but from the documents provided by the whistleblower, clearly Facebook's own researchers described Instagram itself as a, quote, perfect storm. That, and I quote again, exacerbates downward spirals. Facebook knew it was a perfect storm through Instagram that exacerbates downward spirals. My office did its own research. We created an Instagram account identified as a 13-year-old girl and followed a few easily findable accounts associated with extreme dieting and eating disorders. Within a day, its recommendations were exclusively filled with accounts that promote self-injury and eating disorders. That is the perfect storm that Instagram has fostered and created. So Facebook has asked us to trust it. But after these evasions and these revelations, why should we? It's clear that Facebook has done nothing to earn that trust, not from us, not from parents, not from the public. In truth, Facebook has taken Big Tobacco's playbook. It has hidden its own research on addiction and the toxic effects of its products. It has attempted to deceive the public and us in Congress about what it knows, and it has weaponized childhood vulnerabilities against children themselves. It's chosen growth over children's mental health and well-being, greed over preventing the suffering of children. These internal Facebook studies are filled with recommendations from Facebook's own employees. And yet, there is no evidence, none, that Facebook has done anything other than a few small, minor, marginal changes. We all know that Facebook treated protecting kids with disregard. If it had protected kids like it did drive up revenue or growth, it would have done a whole lot more. Instead, Facebook has evaded, misled, and deceived. I hope that this hearing provides real transparency and marks the start of a change from Facebook. Parents deserve the truth. Thank you to everyone for being here this morning. I'll turn to the ranking member, and then if the chairwoman or the ranking member have remarks, I'd be happy to call on them.